According to Reuters, UNESCO plans to invest $9 billion over 10 years to revive tourism in Ukraine because this country lost around $10 billion in tourism revenue ever since the beginning of the war in February 2022. This move, justified by the Organization by International Solidarity, shows how this organization strives to preserve the heritage of the Earth as a whole, regardless of borders and countries.
UNESCO, which stands for the United Nations Educational, Scientific and Cultural Organization, is an agency of the United Nations. It aims to promote, throughout the world, world peace and protection of education, culture and science. Headquartered in Paris, it was created in 1945 and nowadays it includes 194 member states and 12 associated members. Its actions are principally focused on the protection of international and national heritages, allowing young people to get a better education and developing scientific searches. However, as in every organization, everything is not perfect, and UNESCO is the main character of some issues, institutional, political, economic, or even counterproductive actions.
It leads us to wonder to what extent does the UNESCO struggle to be efficient with its structural issues and counterproductive actions. We'll see with the example of heritage how UNESCO sets up different actions that can end up being counterproductive. Then, we'll analyze how this international organization is in crisis, especially due to its institutional limits and political issues.
UNESCO has set several missions and strategic aims. According to its website, it strives to mobilize education to transform lives, reconcile with the living, and by doing so, protect the environment, foster science and technology in the service of humanity, and promote inclusion and mutual understanding. UNESCO's major and most famous goal still is the protection of heritage in all its forms, architectural monuments, environmental sites, or cultural customs. To embody this mission, the organization has created a World Heritage List that includes a total of 1,199 properties, ranked between cultural, natural and mixed, with a special category for the heritage in danger.
The latter label has become a stake in itself since this special list aims to international support. This means funds to protect some endangered sites. The Minaret of Jam in Afghanistan is a good example of these endangered monuments. It joined the list in 2002 because of erosion threats. There are some other threats to international heritage, including heritage wars. Some Islamic terrorist organizations target monuments in the Middle East and Northern Africa and aim to destroy them to upset the international community. For example, the Taliban destroyed the Buddhas of Bamyan in Afghanistan in 2001 to provoke the Western world. These attacks have not stopped since then, and these organizations use social media to share videos of them destroying cultural sites to shock the audience.
This matter of global concern can be at times concerning. Some pieces are the center of disputes and disagreements, like the Greek Parthenon marbles. They were shipped to England by Elgin when Greece was still part of the Ottoman Empire, but ever since the country has become independent, it has asked to get them back. However, the British Museum argues that they were acquired legally and are parts of an international heritage that touches them as well. This issue has also been observed with a lot of African pieces of art stolen by settlers, and now a lot of these European countries refuse to give them back to their original countries, also arguing that they're not safe enough to keep them. These conflicts of interest have to be handled somehow, and it raises the question of the real use of UNESCO. The organization has tried to chaperone some disputes, like the one between Athens and London, but it's often not very successful.
Indeed, UNESCO, in its mission to preserve the world's cultural heritage, is often confronted with complex challenges such as the paradoxical impact of UNESCO's World Heritage label, which can sometimes lead to unexpected and counterproductive consequences. One of these is the emergence of mass tourism. The World Heritage label has become a selling point for many tour operators who offer specialized tours to this site. This increasing popularity often results in over-visitation, diverting the label from its original purpose to become a tool for tourism, politics and economics. The anthropologist David Berliner speaks to the UNESCOization of places, citing the example of Luang Prabang in Laos. The UNESCO World Heritage status of this location has led to the denaturalization of its culture. In his essay, he simply explains, Laotian culture is disappearing under the repeated assaults of tourism and neoliberal consumption. On the same topic, a UNESCO consultant remarked, today, temples are no longer treated with the respect they once were. Drugs are found, monks are leaving the city, as are the inhabitants. It feels like Disneyland. Accordingly, Sylvie Brunel has theorized the phenomenon of Disneyfication, the transformation of a place to meet the expectations and assumptions of tourists and spectators as in an amusement park.
Furthermore, UNESCO's preservation actions can have wrong consequences on local populations, as in Panama City. The World Heritage listing of its historic neighborhoods, Casco and Tigre, has led to a polarization of inequalities and the relegation of the poorest social classes to the periphery. During its restoration, the neighborhood was gentrified, and the lower classes were brutally expelled. It facilitated the installation of wealthy foreigners, investing in the most beautiful buildings to transform and resell them as tourist apartments or vacations rentals. Thus, UNESCO's actions can sometimes, as we saw, have undesirable and complex effects, calling into question the effectiveness of the organization's actions.
UNESCO's flaws and lack of actions can be explained for some by over-bureaucratization and centralization, which leads to a lack of coordination and program evaluation, according to the newspaper Parcevaux. This led to the refusal of the United States to pay their share of the budget in 2011, which was a hard blow for UNESCO since they were the biggest donor. The organization lost more than 20% of its annual budget. The US criticized the decision to admit Palestine. It was not their first time leaving the organization either, since they left from 1984 to 2003.
According to Klaus Höfner, an economics professor, the main issues of UNESCO are not only its organization, but also the political compromises it has always made to please all of its founding members. To Höfner, UNESCO needs a fundamental transformation in its structures, but also in its vast arrays of work that was the result of all of its concessions. They just can't deal with every subject in the fields of education, science, culture, and communication. It'd be more beneficial and rewarding for them to focus on specific goals, including its official main goal, offering an intellectual forum where ideas, opinions, and experiences on educational, cultural, and scientific problems are exchanged at a global level. To UFNA, the executive board should also reduce its amount of members, and research boards made of representatives from non-governmental partners should be created. This would also mean better communication between UNESCO and non-governmental organizations, which would make reaching common goals easier.
One of the other main challenges facing UNESCO lies in the politicization of its actions. Its initiatives, intending to foster a sense of belonging and shared responsibility towards a common heritage, sometimes find themselves at the heart of tension and geopolitical complex, revealing the fractures within our international system and the manipulation of heritage issues for political ends. A striking example is the conflict between China and Japan regarding the request for the inscription of letters from Japanese kamikaze pilots on the Memory of the World Register. These letters, written during World War II, reflect the pride of Japanese fighters for an imperialist, racist regime allied with the Third Reich. This request prompted protest from China, which resulted in the inscription of documents on the Nanjing massacre, illustrating how the registration can become a stage for political conflicts related to the sensitive memory of World War II.
In his article titled The UNESCO Crisis, Maurice Flory analyzes how the organization has become a battleground for various global ideologies, highlighting tensions between the West and Third World countries. This ideological diversity within the organization has sometimes led to imbalances in decision-making and disparities in the attribution of the World Heritage label, depending on countries. Some heritages have thus been devalued or neglected due to ideological considerations. Furthermore, nowadays, this politicization is also evident in the rivalry between the United States and China to increase their global influence. UNESCO is sometimes used as a tool of soft power. In 2017, under the leadership of Donald Trump, the United States announced its withdrawal from UNESCO, accusing the organization of being continuously biased against Israel. However, this decision led to the enhancement of China's role as the first financial contributor to UNESCO, which was concerning for the United States. In 2023, under the Biden administration, the United States decided to rejoin UNESCO, stating that this action aimed to block the influence of China.
In conclusion, the analysis of UNESCO's efficiency reveals a multifaceted landscape of challenges and complexities. While the organization's mission to protect and promote global culture and heritage is noble, it grapples with structural issues, political influences, and geopolitical conflicts that hinder its effectiveness.
Suggestions for improvement include structural reform, enhanced coordination, and a renewed commitment to UNESCO's founding principles. Despite these challenges, UNESCO remains a vital international forum for addressing global cultural and heritage issues, highlighting the need for continued dialogue and action.